What if I told you that in 1957, Chevrolet built an engine that hit a number nobody in America had ever touched in a mass production car? 1 horsepower for every cubic inch. Not a race engine built in tiny batches for homologation. An engine you could walk into a dealership and order. And what if I told you that the very system that made this possible was so temperamental, so misunderstood by the mechanics who were supposed to service it, that a huge number of these engines got quietly ripped out and replaced before they ever saw 10,000 miles? This is the story of the Chevy 283 Fuelie, and most of what people assume about it, especially how rare an original one actually is today, is not even close to the truth. It's 1955, and Chevrolet has just landed its small block V8 into the world, and it is a genuine sensation. But here's the problem nobody talks about. Every performance engine at the time, Chevy's included, was still feeding fuel through a carburetor. And carburetors have a weakness that becomes very obvious the moment you push a car hard into a corner. The fuel sits in a float bowl, and float bowls slosh. Hard cornering, hard acceleration, sustained high RPM, and that fuel can literally slosh away from where it needs to be, starving the engine right when you need it most. For a street cruiser, fine, nobody notices. But Zora Arkus Duntov, the engineer who was quietly turning the Corvette from a slow-selling curiosity into something that could actually compete, knew that carburation was going to cap how far this car could go. He needed a fuel delivery system that didn't care what direction the car was pointed in, and that meant solving a problem Detroit hadn't solved yet. So here's what they did. Chevrolet brought in Rochester Products and an engineer named John Dolza, and together they built a mechanical, continuous flow fuel injection system. Chevy called it the Ramjet. And instead of pulling fuel from one shared bowl through a venturi, this system metered fuel individually, continuously, directly toward each cylinder's intake port. No float bowl to slosh, no fuel starvation under lateral G-force. They bolted this system onto a bored-out version of the 265, taking the bore from 3.75 inches to 3.875 while keeping the 3-inch stroke, and that gave them 283 cubic inches. Put the Ramjet injection on top of the right cam and the right compression, and Chevrolet had an engine that, in its top state of tune, made 283 horsepower. 283 cubic inches, 283 horsepower, 1-to-1. Nobody in an American production car had done that before, and Chevy knew exactly what they had. Now here's where it gets complicated, because the 283 Fuelie was not one single engine. Chevrolet offered this thing across a spread of RPO codes, and if you don't know which one you're looking at, you will absolutely misjudge what's in front of you. The base fuel-injected setup came in around 250 horsepower with a milder hydraulic cam, a genuinely usable street engine. Move up the ladder, and you hit the 270 horsepower version, more aggressive cam, more top end, and at the very top sat the 283 horsepower engine, running what enthusiasts still call the Duntov cam, a solid lifter grind built for revs, not idle manners. 3 different personalities, 3 different levels of rarity, all wearing the same Fuelie badge, and all easy to mix up if you're not checking the actual engine code stamped into the deck. But here's the secret that borders on a corporate embarrassment, and it's not about a fake horsepower number this time. It's about reliability Chevrolet never fully admitted to. The Ramjet system was mechanically brilliant, but it needed precise calibration, and most dealership mechanics in 1957 had never touched anything like it. Cold starts could be rough. Idle could be inconsistent. And when a customer brought a stumbling Fuelie back to the dealer, the fastest, cheapest fix for a mechanic who didn't understand the system was simple. Pull the injection unit off, bolt on a 4-barrel carburetor, and send the car back out the door running fine. The customer got a car that worked. What they lost, whether they realized it or not, was the matching numbers engine they paid a real premium for in the first place. Chevrolet never made a habit of publicizing how often this happened. It was just the quiet, unofficial fix that kept comebacks off the books. And that premium was steep. Adding fuel injection to your Corvette in 1957 wasn't a small checkbox. It added something in the neighborhood of $500 to the window sticker, which on a car that already cost around $3,000 was a serious percentage. That price alone kept take rates low. Chevrolet built a little over 6,000 Corvettes for the 1957 model year, and only a fraction of those, roughly 1 in 6, left the factory with fuel injection under the hood. That's already a small number. But once you factor in every unit that got quietly de-injected at a dealership over the following years, the number of Corvettes still running their original numbers matching Ramjet system today is smaller than most people assume, and that's the anomaly almost nobody quantifies correctly. The production count tells you how many were built. It does not tell you how many survived intact. Where this engine really made its case, though, was on a racetrack, and specifically at Sebring in 1957. Factory-backed Corvettes running fuel-injected 283s went down to Florida for the 12 hours and delivered a class win. Proof on the clock that this engine wasn't just a marketing number, it was a genuine competitor against cars that cost multiples more. And this is exactly where the story gets cut short in a way nobody at Chevrolet planned for. In June of 1957, the Automobile Manufacturers Association pushed through a resolution asking every major American manufacturer to pull out of factory-backed racing entirely. Chevrolet, publicly at least, complied. The engine that had just proven itself on an international stage lost its platform to keep proving itself, not because it stopped winning, but because the rules of the entire industry changed underneath it. Here's something that surprises a lot of people who assume the Fuelie was already maxed out from the factory. It wasn't. The Ramjet system's fuel metering was precise enough that it had real headroom for enthusiasts willing to dig into it. Better cylinder heads, a more aggressive cam swap, careful recalibration of the injection unit itself, and these engines could support meaningfully more power than Chevrolet ever advertised. The factory rating was a conservative, production-friendly number, not the ceiling of what the hardware could physically do. If you're chasing one of these today, know what you're getting into. Original Ramjet injection units are their own specialized rebuild, and there are specialists who do nothing else. Authentication comes down to matching the injection unit's date and casting codes to the engine, and matching the engine to the car's original build sheet. And because so many of these got swapped for carburetors decades ago, the parts market has plenty of correct-looking reproduction and reconditioned units floating around that were never born on that specific engine. A numbers-matching claim on a Fuelie deserves real scrutiny before real money changes hands. And you could hear the difference before you ever popped the hood. A carbureted small block has that familiar rumble, fuel and air getting pulled through a venturi in pulses. The Fuelie didn't sound like that. The mechanical injection gave it a sharper, more mechanical induction note, throttle response that felt almost immediate, compared to a carburetor working through its linkage. Drivers who ran both back-to-back in period noticed it instantly. This wasn't just a different fuel delivery method. It changed the entire character of how the car responded to your right foot. And that brings us to how this engine's story actually ends, which is quieter than you'd expect for something this significant. The 283 Fuelie didn't fail. It didn't get outclassed on a dyno or embarrassed on a track. It simply ran its window, 1957 through 1961, while Chevrolet was already looking ahead to a bigger small block. By 1962, the Ramjet system found a new home on the 327, and the 283 Fuelie quietly stepped aside for its successor. It wasn't retired because it lost. It was retired because Chevrolet had already built what came next, and the 283 had already done everything it was built to prove. So there you have it. 11 secrets, one engine, a racing career cut short not by a rival, but by an industry-wide handshake agreement, and a survival rate that's a lot lower than the production numbers alone would ever tell you. The 283 Fuelie earned the 1 horsepower per cubic inch headline. What it never got was full credit for how many of those engines quietly disappeared from under their own hoods. So here's what I want to know. If a mechanic in 1958 handed you back your stumbling Fuelie with a carburetor bolted on instead, fixed but no longer original, would you have taken the trade for reliability? And if a genuinely numbers-matching 57 fuel-injected Corvette showed up near you tomorrow, rough running and all, would you buy it and preserve it exactly as it sits, or would you make it drive right? Let us know in the comments. But thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. Until next time, enthusiasts.